Okay. All right. Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Danette. I'm the managing editor of Bizcommunity. I'm very honored this afternoon to be hosting two jury members from the Gerety Awards, which is named after Francis Gerety, who in 1948 termed or copywrote "A Diamond is Forever." And today we've got Ku Govender with us, who is the CEO of Publicis Group Africa, and Linda Kachingwe Sisia, who is the executive head of marketing and communications Africa and International for R&B and FNB in South Africa. Welcome, ladies. It's lovely to have you here. Ku, I'm going to jump straight in. We don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to start with you. Give me a very brief intro to yourself, just 2-3 sentences, just so the audience know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Ku Govender, first female CEO for Publicis Africa, and I'm extremely passionate about women empowerment and an advocate for women upliftment as well. And my passion is to see more women seated around the boardroom table.
Lovely. Linda, perhaps tell us a little bit more about you.
Thank you. My name is Linda, and I am passionate about building brands. I believe in the power of a good story, a story that changes communities, that changes business fortunes, that changes, that takes brands from normal to legendary. And that's why I do what I do. I'm a passionate marketer. I've worked in FMCG, and now I'm in the financial services industry. Absolutely love it. Absolutely believe in the impact that marketing has on business, community, as well as society.
Lovely. So with that lens, I think we're going to jump straight in and we're going to look at some of the campaigns that you've highlighted that you guys enjoyed or thought were really good that you judged. And I'm going to start with Ku, and I'm going to start with the Lux reversed roles. So this is a really interesting. They took 3 actors, male actors, and they kind of made them say sexist type stuff that we normally associated about women. And so it was really quite hard hitting. Ku, tell me why you selected this as one of your favorite campaigns.
So, Danette, I've already told you about me being a woman advocate. The Lux Reverse Roles campaign is compelling and extremely thought-provoking initiative that masterfully employs roles reversal to highlight and challenge ingrained gender biases in the Middle Eastern societies. And by flipping gender roles, gender traditional roles, the campaign actually exposes the subtle and overt ways in which societal norms and expectations can perpetuate inequality. And what I loved is the creative approach not only brings attention to the disparities faced by women, but also encourages viewers to reflect on their own perceptions and behaviors. And in a region where discussions around gender can be particularly sensitive, Lux's bold strategy fostering meaningful conversations and promotes a more inclusive perspective on gender roles. And this is what really truly also hit home for me as a woman as well.
Thank you. That's very interesting. And if you haven't had a look at this campaign, I strongly suggest you do. It is quite shocking in a way, just because of the reversal. It's such a simple idea, actually. And this is what they always say, a simple insight, a simple idea, but just such a great big impact. So coming to you, Linda, one of the campaigns you chose was Don't Look Down. I find this fascinating because this was about children and smartphone addiction. And you can tell us a little bit about it, but what I found so fascinating is it's a 9-hour film. So did you sit through the whole 9 hours?
Absolutely not. I think it was brilliantly done. The idea itself is rooted in insight. So if you think about it, I mean, just a brief overview of Bixby is the brand in the Middle East. And what they do is they have pouches where you can keep your phones in an institution like a school so that kids can focus. And their point was they could have easily gone into schools and sold it to the end user, but they didn't. They looked at it from a purpose point of view. and they looked at research to say that kids that spend a lot of time on their phones actually don't do well in school. And to demonstrate it, they booked out a cinema, called in policymakers, educationalists, parents, and they said this movie, the surprise was this movie is 9 hours long. And 37 minutes in, I mean, you could scan a QR code to end it. And 37 minutes in, everyone scanned the QR code. But I think what it did was it activated how you can get sucked into social media if not managed well. And through that, there was a lot of policy change in the UAE. And from a profit point of view, there was a lot, they were able to penetrate schools, I mean, in multiples of thousands from where they were. I think what it taught me is the power of and. That you don't need to do, it's not purpose or profit. You can have purpose and profit. You can impact communities in a positive way and still make a profit. And I think for me, it was done in a very balanced way, in a way that there's certain things that we knew, but when you're in it, then you're like, okay, it's really a problem. So I absolutely love it.
And it's a very pertinent issue, of course, globally.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So if we come back to another campaign from that Ku chose, which was also from the Middle East region, and this was Omo, the art of stars, and stains, sorry, not stars. And tell us a little bit about this. Is another women's issue, very pertinent, and really could be something that needs to be addressed worldwide, but how they did it was amazing. Again, that cultural insight, that local nuance that was so important. Tell us a little bit more about this campaign.
I think before I speak about the campaign, Danette, I wanted to say what I loved when I chose my two choices, but also overall in terms of what how the campaigns we received to judge. One of the trends were the insights were really on point, which it was so easy to judge because when the insights are on point, it becomes factual and it's data driven as well. So it's not, it's so objective and not subjective. And I think Linda will agree with me on that.
I agree completely.
Yeah. So I'm sure you know why I chose the Omo Art of Stains. The Omo Art of Stains campaign for me was a masterclass, a class in terms of it being culturally resonant, purpose-driven, and it had such compelling storytelling. By collaborating with Enna artists in Saudi Arabia, Omo transformed a meaningful, deep-rooted cultural tradition into a discreet yet powerful educational tool. And we know how menstruation is sometimes it's not a nice word in certain regions, and henna salons already in this intimate space where women gather and share and this is a platform for them in a safe space. Share this in terms of period care, personal care, and you don't feel judged. It's really a safe space for the woman. And the one thing that I liked about the campaign was the campaign cleverly embedded stain removal instructions into intricate henna designs. And this was really, really well done. And allowing women to literally carry this information on their hands. And this approach not only respects cultural sensitivities, but really empowers women with practical solutions, challenging the taboos about menstruation in a way that feels organic and personal. It is so authentic. And it's a beautiful example for me of how creativity can intersect with tradition and also the insights that drives meaningful change, but most importantly was how it empowers, educates young women on menstruation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this campaign. And I think it's because when some of the women talk, as a woman, you can relate to some of those stories. And I agree with you, the local nuance, the insight, just everything coming together. And it really is a good example of, what good creativity can do. And when we want to talk about creativity, how can we not talk about Coca-Cola, right?
Oh my gosh.
So this one was really interesting to me. I've seen this ad before from Coca-Cola. And what I liked about this, and they had South African artists in this, was that whole thing of a big brand, a really big brand that's taking control away from itself and giving it to the people and letting creators create. And this is a bit of a trend worldwide, but I often think maybe we pay lip service to it because I think it's really difficult for a brand to say, well, here, do what you like with my logo. So, Linda, tell us about the campaign and what drew you to it.
I think what I liked, and you mentioned it so well, what I liked was how Coke came across as authentic to who they are as a brand, and authentic to their brand essence. So if you think about it, at this time, Coke had run was on a whole share a Coke platform, right? And we all know, if you go to the townships, if you go to all the cities, especially if I think about South Africa, outside spaza shops, you'll find that a lot of the owners of the mom and pop, the spaza shop, they brand their shop with the Coca-Cola branding. And I mean, it's not really, it doesn't adhere to brand guidelines in most cases. The colors are there, the Pantone might be different. And I mean, Coke is a global brand. This is a brand that is centuries old. I think from a brand marketer, the first impression you have is, oh, please, let's go and paint over it and make sure that our brand is correct. They didn't do that. They recognized that this is user-generated content in a traditional media channel. I think we talk about user-generated content online. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, this is brilliant. It's innovative trade marketing that brings the shop owner who are actually good members of respectable members of their societies into the brand. And through them, they get a lot of brand loyalty by acknowledging them and the work and telling their stories as to what that logo represents for them. And what I found extremely compelling was how they were able to make trade marketing in the informal sector, emotionally appealing. Now, that's not easy, but somehow they were able to do it in a way that is very authentic to the brand and in a way that uplifts communities. And I mean, when I watched it, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is brilliant. And this is what we as marketers should do more of.
I
think, can I contribute to, Jeanette, can I contribute to
of course, yes.
Linda's statement? Because Coke was also one of my favorites. And I think as South Africans, we really resonated with this Coke ad.
Yeah.
And they were on point in terms of the insights, because in terms of the insights was the community upliftment, love brand of Coke in a community. And I think that is so important, is the brand stayed true to itself. And the one thing in terms of trends was the authenticity and the purpose driven in how these brands came across.
Yeah, I definitely, to be authentic, to be a big brand like Coke and do that, come across like that rather, can be quite difficult. And we see many brands get it wrong. I know I'm mindful that Koo has to leave at 20 past, and I know Linda has another campaign, but I thought before we get to that, could we look perhaps at some of the general trends that you're seeing coming out of these campaigns? We're seeing that insight is so important. We're seeing that the local nuances are very important and don't take away from the ad being understood by people in other parts of the world. We're seeing that authenticity is so important. What are some of the trends, or a trend that you're seeing? And perhaps we can start with Koo, when you were judging all of these campaigns.
For me, the one trend, and that's what I really liked about judging this award, was the purpose driven. It stood for what the purpose was. And in terms of the purpose, the campaigns was just not about hard sell. It told a compelling story. And that's what resonates with our consumers, because if you tell a compelling story that resonates with you, you're then bound to purchase this this whatever it is, right? And that's what I felt were the trends, was the authenticity, the insights, but just the compelling stories with purpose-driven actions.
Yeah,
No, I mean,
storytelling, and
yeah,
something, Linda, you touched on earlier in our conversation. And I
absolutely.
think you want to add to that.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I want to add to that. I think you've rightly captured it, data and analytics. But I think also what came out very strongly for me is what I call career strategy. So creative that is deeply rooted in strategy. I think it was important to see that brands are really investing in a responsible way, but brands want to make an impact, not just to themselves, but they feel a deep responsibility to the client, and they're putting the client first. The other trend that I noticed is how AI is being used. I think AI has come a long way. You'll see now in some of the campaigns, I mean, that I didn't even mention, but there's an example of Condom in Germany, the condom company that were able to make to use AI to protect people from, being filmed without them knowing. It's still remaining true to what the brand is, but it's using AI for good. So I think for me, if we talk about storytelling, data and insights, emotional and rational, the blend of emotional and rational, and creative and strategy coming together, I think we can see that we're on a very good wicket as an industry. And I have no doubt that our region will be one to really look at as we go into awards in future.
And just to contribute to what Linda said as well, I really, apart from the softer in terms of the compelling storytelling and the authenticity, the thing that really resonated with me was how they brought in tech, data, and creativity, and it just flowed so seamlessly.
Beautifully. That's it.
Yeah, it just flowed so seamlessly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I think when it all
I
comes
have to
together.
go.
Yes. Thank you so much, Koo.
Thanks,
Linda,
Koo.
please stay. We're going to talk
Thank
about
you.
your last campaign.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, and we'll
Thank
catch up,
you.
Koo. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Bye.
Koo.
Bye.
Yeah, I think Linda was saying, when you do it authentically, it works. And it actually brings me nicely to the last campaign that you chose, which was Heineken Trust Bars. And this really is rooted in culture. Tell us a bit about this culture, because I found this fascinating, and this would not work here.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to say.
No, this wouldn't work in South Africa. Actually, it wouldn't work in a lot of places, but that's how you know that brands are actually pushing boundaries to meet the client's need. So maybe just to give an overview, Heineken, as we all know, Heineken sponsors the UEFA Cup. They're into sponsorship. They have big sponsorship football properties across the world. Secondly, if you think of a Heineken ad, it happens in a bar, because it's all about friends and people coming together, sharing a Heineken and watching a game. And in South Korea, actually, what they noticed was when the games take place in the UK or in Europe, it's actually 3 a.m. in South Korea. They tried to get the bar owners to keep the bars open, but they couldn't, because it was just expensive keeping, the staff working between 3 and 6. The bar owners couldn't do that. So what they did was actually they automated the payment system. So you could click and get a draft of Heineken, and bar owners and Heineken work together to keep these bars open, to allow their target audience, who are fans in South Korea, to actually enjoy Heineken and the game together at 3 a.m. I think what just stood out for me was the brand's commitment to being ready to throw out the rule book and throw out what we know around how things work, and working around it so that it not only serves their clients, but also the results had a positive impact on the owners, for the owners of the bars. I mean, sales skyrocketed over 200%. But if you look at the preference and brand loyalty after that, it skyrocketed. So I think for me, when I looked at that campaign, I thought, and that's why when you say two, I was like, I have to talk about this. It was a challenge to all of us as brand marketers, agencies, that how are we looking at what seem to be challenges differently to ensure that we're meeting the customer need and that we're exceeding. So in this case, it solved for the brand, it solved for the clients who are the fans, it solved for the owners of the bars. And overall, the experience is one that we're talking about here today in South Africa because it had such an impact. So I think everything we've spoken about, it was really encapsulated in this campaign.
Yeah, I find Honey can often approach something out of the box almost.
Yeah, that's it.
So and it seems surprising, but it's very creative, very innovative, and that was what makes it so great. And I mean, they were saying in this that, they would just leave the bars open 24 hours a day because they often do that anyway and no one breaks in. I was like, fascinating, the whole culture.
Exactly.
I'm not sure if I want to have a beer at 4 a.m. in the morning, but anyway, if you're a football fan, you're a diehard
but I think
that's
it was
an insight.
Exactly, but it's also understanding the culture and the people and your clients, because the data and insights on this particular case study were outstanding. Because think about someone coming in to say, "Oh well, we're just going to open the bars and we're going to trust that they'll pay." I think in that boardroom it wasn't an approval upfront, but it worked. So it also goes to show that when your strategy and your approach is rooted in human insight, in data, when you're part of culture, your brand can transcend any barriers that seem to be there.
And I think that's well put. And I think what these campaigns demonstrate, the ones that you've chosen and Coup, is that, we can have as much technology as we like and fancy shiny toys, but really the basics of our industry need to be in place. Insights. And it doesn't matter how you get data, because you got data before technology, tools, and AI, but you still had to use it to get an insight to make sure that you will be culturally relevant locally. And nothing there has changed.
No.
And that's what I think each one of these 5 campaigns show. And that is why we all resonate with all of them, all think they're fabulous.
Exactly. No, I mean, and I mean, well done to all the candidates that have been shortlisted. It was really competitive, but the work was outstanding. It made me feel very proud to be a part of this industry. And I have no doubt that as a region, we'll continue to do well and we'll continue to have impact from a purpose, profit, and sustainability point of view for our region.
Well, I think so too, and I hope so going forward. Linda, it's been lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you to the Gerety Awards for hosting these panels. And yes, have a lovely Friday, everybody.
Thank you. Have a lovely Friday. Cheers.